Greetings and welcome. You're tuned into TMH's Daily English News. Our headlines for today: the government is exploiting the victory at the World Athletics Championships for political ends in Ethiopia. Russia's overtures in Africa have left European officials extremely anxious about the EU's cautious pace to re-engage into the Ethiopian government despite accusations of war crimes as well as ethnic cleansing. And analysts say that the international institutions and the countries should be held accountable for the crimes of genocide that are taking place within the Tigrai region. As we move on to our main updates, Russia's moves on Africa forced the European Union to rethink on Ethiopia's behalf. Russia's overtures in Africa have left European officials extremely anxious about the EU's cautious pace to re-engage into the Ethiopian government despite accusations of war crimes and ethnic cleansing. Timnit Bayru has more on this update.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was once a darling of the West and hailed as a reformer, even winning the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize, but has been more recently criticized for ordering the systematic murder of civilians in the Tigray region during a civil war. As a result, the EU has been reluctant to resume full financial support for Ahmed's regime despite tentative peace negotiations in the country. But several EU diplomats from the bloc's larger members argue Russia's increasing presence in Ethiopia has made it difficult to maintain strict EU standards in the country, and say countries including Italy, Germany, France, and the Netherlands are pushing to give more funding to the country's government. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was even in Addis Ababa on Wednesday, pledging support and accusing Western powers of retaining a colonial mindset in the region. There are fears Russia might take advantage of the deteriorating ties with Addis and its western partner, said William Davidson, senior Ethiopia analyst at the International Crisis Group. So there is an overarching desire with some countries for stability with a relatively important ally over humanitarian concerns like accountability over war crimes, he added. With that in mind, the European Commission recently authorized 81.5 million euros in humanitarian funding for education and health projects, but made it clear the projects would occur outside of government structures, a spokeswoman said. A potential 1 billion euros in EU funding for Ethiopia, cut off amid the war, could be released in the coming years after strict conditions like foreign troops withdrawing and a permanent ceasefire are upheld. There is an openness to engage based on progress and real concerns about China and Russia filling any gap, one said diplomat familiar with the matter. But at the time, we can't throw out our norms and values. This constant calculus highlights the broader challenge bedeviling European policymakers, how to pursue their stated goal of promoting European values in Africa, which sometimes means withholding funds. While the Kremlin makes inroads by blaming the West for Africa's challenges and offering no strings attached deals, or worse, letting Moscow arm belligerents in fragile states and empower war. Peace talks with Tigray's leadership are tentatively set for August. The Commission said not enough has been achieved to resume financial budget support that was suspended after the war broke out in November 2020. Although there is some progress in Ethiopia, there is still an urgent need to re-establish basic services in Tigray, like access to fuel, energy, banks, communications, a Commission spokeswoman said. Unlike the EU, the World Bank has started extending a hand to PM Abiy Ahmed. The bank in April announced a 300 million grant for the reconstruction of war-torn regions, including Tigray, which remains under a military blockade that continues to cause suffering for millions of people. Maharit Tadele Maru, a political economist at the European University Institute in Florence, said the World Bank plan was hasty and not well considered and greases the war machine. Any EU member state that supports World Bank financing or wants business as usual ignores possible genocide. It is ridiculous, he said. This will not lead to sustainable peace, but could increase further fragmentation. Simmering tensions remain across Ethiopia, a country of 120 million people for more than 80 ethnic groups. There are fears Ethiopia could splinter as Addis Ababa tries to consolidate power via a centralized model of governance. Even with the recent infusion of development funds, economic uncertainty looms over the country as it faces an economic crisis after a decade of growth. Earlier this year, Ethiopia asked the International Monetary Fund to restructure some of its debt as a part of an initiative to help countries navigate the pandemic's fallout. But critics argue Ethiopia's financial woes are tied to this costly war in Tigray. EU countries appear to have taken a varied approach to Ethiopia. France, for instance, cut off an 85 million euro military loan to Ethiopia in August of 2021. Yet, by May of the following year, Italy announced it had struck a deal with the Ethiopian government that included 22 million euros soft loan for business ventures in regions including Tigray. At an EU level, the bloc has not always shown a unified stand. Brussels top diplomat Joseph Borrell scolded members for failing last year to reach an agreement on sanctions linked to the war. One diplomat said this illustrated the diverging views over how best foster peace in Ethiopia. The Women of Tigray, an online advocacy network, said it was dangerous to further normalize relations with the Ethiopian government, calling calling the World Bank grant highly irresponsible. It noted that relying on the federal government or pro-government NGOs as a development partners, in particular for reducing gender-based violence projects, will be futile and risk prolonging the ongoing devastation. Maru, the political economist, said the fundamentals that started the war, including tensions over the constitution and its Ethio-federalist model, need to be resolved via dialogue and a proper reconciliation process.
Welcome back. You're still tuned into TMH's Daily English News, and thank you to Timnit Bayru on elaborating Russia's current moves in regards to Ethiopia. As we move on to our next update, the government is exploiting the victory of the World Athletics Championships for political ends. At the World Athletics Championship in Oregon, Ethiopian athletes collected 10 medals, including 4 golds, the second most of any country. Tigrayan athletes who scooped 3 of the 4 gold medals are unable to see their families or talk to them on the phone due to the siege imposed on the 7 million population of the region by Abiy Ahmed's government. And according to Tigrayan analyst Seifa Gabramesqal, the warm welcome the athletes received upon their arrival in Addis Ababa is only a mere attempt by the Ethiopian government to reconstruct a false narrative around the athletes' victory rather than addressing the serious concerns of the athletes, their families, and the people of Tigray. Seifa Gabramesqal wrote on Addis Standard that the regime's frames and the win as something unique to Ethiopians to show the world that they love Tigray and Tigrayans and that they only hate TPLF. As the world knows well, the 500,000 civilian Tigrayans killed, the millions displaced from western Tigray, and tens of thousands kept in concentration camps across Ethiopia are not TPLF. They are just ordinary people who happen to be Tigrayans, as the writer noted. He also said the victory is also being exploited for domestic politics to rally the public for another military adventurism and what the regime calls a repeat of athletics victory and war front to keep the national unity. Tigrayans and other marginalized communities know very well they do not feel unified. Rather, Ethiopia victimizes everyone, including its world-class athletes. Seifa Gabramesqal said it is not hard to imagine the feeling of the Tigrayan athletes, quote-unquote, a mix of pride and agony. Gotoitom Gabrasilaisa, who's a post-victory interview in Eugene, Oregon, sums up the feeling extremely well, saying, "I'm happy for the win, but I have mixed emotions. I would have liked to hear and see my mother and father celebrate just like all of the other Ethiopians are celebrating my win. This win was great," she said, "but I am also a little confused." She expressed these feelings while under a watchful eye of those who monitor these Tigrayan athletes at the competitions and as they do their press conferences. Goitotom's mother also expressed similar mixed feelings. She felt and said because she could not talk to her daughter but was happy about the win, the parents of Latasanbet Gadai also echoed the same sentiment, mentioning that they had not heard from or seen their daughter for almost 2 years due to this ongoing blockade and siege imposed on the Tigray region. Seifa Gabramesqal says days after the World Athletics events ended, authorities have yet to allow Tigrayan athletes to directly speak to their families in Tigray by a phone or a video call message, and seem to not have any plans to let them travel and visit their loved ones into the Tigray region either.
እኔ ሁሉም ነገር ሰላሙን እኔ እንደተደሰትኩት አባትናቴም ይደሰታል ብዬ አምናለሁ። ምን ጸንሕከን እተናክስ የለወክ ደቆሩ
አረ ይብለክም አይብለ ብስርቆል እስጨንቅን አውዚ ወርሕ የገ ካልም ማላለስ
ታግኒ ደነ ይርክኸም
ሓይሻ እንስን ሓይሻ ድሕዝና ንኸድ
Wow, look at this. Gebrselassie, she has kicked in, and Korea, it would appear, cannot respond in the way she would like. She has waited and waited and waited for this moment, and then she has pounced and never gave Korea a chance to come back. She's going to be mighty close to that. It might even be a personal best to put icing on her cake. It will indeed. The tape beckons. Gotitom Gebrselassie of Ethiopia is world champion here in Eugene. And look at the time, 2:18.11. It is indeed a championship record.
What a battle! Who's got the heart? Who's got the belief? Who's got the drive and the acceleration? One of the great 10,000 metre races. Gide, desperate for the win. Is it going to be her turn? She looks over her shoulder. Abiri's closing. She drifts out. Letesenbet Gide, by the narrowest of margins, turns silver from Doha into gold here in...
Analysts say international institutions and countries should be held accountable for the crimes of genocide that have taken place within the Tigray region. Mohammed Nur Hussein, who wrote many articles on the ongoing Tigray genocide, wrote an article titled Tigray Genocide, The Banality of Evil Revisited. In that article, the analyst said internal players and the external enablers, including the Nobel Committee, the World Bank, the African Union, and the Commission under its ineffectual chairman, the U.S., which continues to show only its concern since the war began as opposed to merely doing anything about it, the UN, that has practically washed its hands of the crisis, are complicit in all the crimes. Article 3 of the Genocide Convention cites, among other things, complicity in genocide as punishable crime. The genocidal war is now more than 600 days and shows no sign of abating anytime soon. The invading forces have committed unimaginable atrocities, killing young men and boys on sight, gang raping women of all ages, setting fires to farms, looting medical supplies, medicine, and equipment, and systematically destroying the region's educational, medical, agricultural, and industrial infrastructures, while targeting cultural and religious sites as well. The Tigray regional state has been under complete communication blackout with no internet, telephone, electricity, or banking services. The region remains still under siege, with food and medicine only now trickling despite the ceasefire agreement to allow food and medicine in completely. A research study by the University of Ghent in Belgium estimates that 500,000 Tigrayans may have already died from lack of food, medicine, and just civilian casualties of war as well. U.S. has hopes for progress on this ongoing Ethiopian peace talks after the Kenyan election comes to a conclusion. A senior U.S. official voiced cautious hope on Wednesday for a start of an Ethiopian peace talks after next month's election in neighboring Kenya, which has played a key diplomatic role. Abiy Ahmed has said the African Union, based in Addis Ababa, should take the lead in mediation, a stance rejected by the government of Tigray, which instead wants to negotiate under Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. Molly Fee, the top U.S. diplomat for Africa, also played down the row, saying that Abiy had positive relations with the Kenyatta, but nothing that Kenyan holds election on August 9th can divert. It's our expectation that a natural focus on the event may be affecting the scheduling of these talks, said Fee as she told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That concludes our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back for some more tomorrow. Bye-bye.